Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, and we're starting right off with our M.A. Neal Financial Services interview right off the jump on the program this morning. I was hoping that you could start by introducing yourself and telling me your role.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jenny Groen. I am the Steuben County 4-H program leader.
Okay.
And I've been with Cooperative Extension for, 13 years, I think, something like that.
And I'm Michelle Chase. I am the 4-H coordinator, and I've been in my position for about over a year and a half now.
Well, for those of us that aren't aware, and I don't know a ton about it, could you tell us a little bit about the 4-H?
Sure. Yeah. So the 4-H program, it's a national youth development program, and it's the largest in the country, and it's worldwide as well. And so in Steuben County, though, we have over 300 youth enrolled.
Wow.
And we have from ages 5 years up to 18 years old, and they participate in a wide variety of programs that include animal science, agriculture, of course. That's really where 4-H started and the roots of the program. But then it's expanded also to include the STEM, so we have a robotics group,
Oh, wow.
we have photography, we have some computer science, we have dog obedience, sewing, home ec, a little bit of everything really. So it's really great program that we use a lot of volunteers, but it's youth led and interest led, and then we find the volunteers to help support those youth discover what interests them.
Well, and this must be a big time of year for 4-H because you've got, we were talking about it yesterday on the program, the Steuben County Fair. So how much planning goes into this for you?
We started planning this year's fair last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
It stops, and then we start right back up in September. So,
Well, what can people expect at the Steuben County Fair?
well, we so even before the fair even starts, we start this Saturday with our dog show at 10 a.m. Right on the fairgrounds.
Oh, neat.
So that's before the fair even starts, and then Sunday, our youth start bringing in the youth building projects that they've made. So some people don't realize that there's a lot of art projects and everything in our 4-H building that show all these kids year-round interests that they've doing, and we are showing them off in the 4-H building.
Well, what I think so neat, and you mentioned youth participation in this, when you go through the barn, there's so much pride and excitement from those kids, isn't it? It's got to be life-changing, really, for them in some ways.
yeah, these kids, they work hard. They work,
Yeah.
a lot of them, all year round, and the county fair serves as the showcase for that project and all that hard work that they've put in, and so they are definitely proud, and rightfully so.
How many people do you have participate?
At the fair
Yeah.
itself,
Yeah.
I think we're over 200
Wow, really?
between the animal exhibits and all the projects.
Wow. And how many people does it take behind the scenes to do this? Not just you two.
No,
No.
our volunteers, we heavily rely on our volunteers. I mean, from barn superintendents to parents, our
To
sale
judges.
committee, judges.
Yep.
Our volunteers, I mean, honestly, without them, we couldn't do this.
and they're a lot of the time the frontline folks working with the youth year-round, preparing
okay.
them for this too. So it wouldn't be possible without our volunteers.
That's
Absolutely.
And also, I don't think we mentioned it in the laundry list. There's a livestock show. That's really what most people are probably aware of the most. Is that true?
Yep. So basically, every day, starting on Tuesday, there will be a livestock show of some sort.
Okay.
Every day, there's a different species, if not two species, going on. So right behind the sheep and swine barn, there's a show pen, and
Okay.
stop over and look at the animals that these kids have worked and put so many hours into preparing them for this.
And then how can someone, because I have another question, but how can someone find the schedule so that they know more about what day they should pick to go to the Steuben County Fair?
So we have the Steuben County 4-H Facebook page,
Okay.
or also our Cornell Cooperative Extension website as well.
Okay.
Which that can be found at putknowledgetowork.org.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the 4-H market animal sale, because this is a big event.
Absolutely. So Saturday, August 19th at 1 p.m. starts the sale.
Okay.
We sell everything from rabbits, chickens, turkeys,
Okay.
sheep, goats, beef, and hogs. So we start with the small animals, and what you can do is come and bid on these animals, and What a lot of people don't realize that when you do purchase these animals, it is considered a tax donation.
Oh, interesting.
So for business owners and such, it's a great opportunity to give back to these kids. And so on Sunday, we actually take care of, if you want the animals to go be butchered, that we have volunteers that actually make that happen. So some people don't realize they aren't buying an animal and they got to figure out a way to haul it or anything. We do take care of that if they need that available. But it's a huge opportunity to come see these kids. The animals, you can see them throughout the week. And on Friday, most of the animals will be shown. So if somebody wants to come and look at a prospective animal to buy, that would be a great day to come do that.
And how do they participate in the auction? You just sign up that day?
Yep, you just show up. We have Empire Livestock is grateful enough to help us with the sale. So come get a bidder number, even if you don't plan on, if you might not bid, at least you have a number. If you see something you like, you can bid on it.
Do the auctions get pretty lively?
Sometimes. I mean, it's not your normal livestock sale, but it's definitely fun to see bidders get into it once in a while.
Now, how does someone maybe watching this, it is summertime, so there's not school, how does a young person get involved in 4-H?
So that's a great question. We get that a lot because of summertime and everyone has a little more time in their schedule. So our enrollment year really runs October 1st through the end of September. So
Okay.
kind of with the school year. And our clubs are most active, I would say, during the school year. In the summers, the clubs themselves are community clubs, which we have scattered about the county. We have about 16 that are volunteer-led, and they do the variety of projects with the kids. And that way, families don't have to drive as far,
Sure.
hopefully. They can find a club that's right in their community that they can meet with kids, again, from their community they probably know, go to school with. And then, but so to start that process, though, they just can reach out to, if they have a friend that's in 4-H, or they can reach out to that club leader, they can reach out to us at the office. That putknowledgetowork.org, our main website, has all the information under the 4-H tab. And we'll have information, of course, at the fair, but youth 5 to 18 are eligible to participate, and a wide variety of projects. We do county level programming as well, and so it doesn't matter what club you're a part of, you can come to that different programming and participate in what interests the youth.
Now, what if you're an adult and you want to volunteer?
Oh, we'd love to have volunteers.
That was a big question. I should have asked right from the beginning.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. So that's again, they'd reach out to us. We do have to do a screening, right? We
Sure.
have adults working with youth, so there's a screening process, but we try to make it as painless as possible. And we like to try to pair up folks who might be new to the program with some folks who've been with the program for a while and are very familiar with 4-H. And so, but yeah, getting that process started is just as simple as reaching out to us, and folks can be a club leader if they want. That's a big commitment, but we always need club leaders.
Sure.
Or they can, if they want to volunteer for something specific in a short-term role, that's wonderful too. So if they have a niche interest, maybe it's photography, they want to do 1 or 2 classes on, that's great, and we can work with them to get something set up.
Well, we were talking about the excitement of the kids during the fair, but I bet you the leaders and the volunteers, they're probably just as excited, aren't they? To see these kids grow and see the work they
Absolutely.
put into it.
So I was a youth myself, and just looking back,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. But yeah, the volunteers, they love to see these kids succeed. One thing I don't think people realize is with the 4-H program, if people are maybe lenient to join and don't think their kid might not like it, it's only $10 to join.
Oh, wow.
So if it's something that your kid wants to try, it's not a big commitment financially. Just come try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least it's a
Give it a
great
shot.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, final question: what does your week look like during the fair?
So like I said, mine starts Saturday with the dog show, but Monday is move-in day for most of the animals, which includes weighing in animals for the market animals, getting everybody vet checked as they come in. and then I run all the livestock shows.
Oh, wow.
Jenny has a little bit of a different schedule.
It's a little, yeah. So my week will start Sunday, and it involves all week involves a lot of caffeine, but we get through. And so the projects will come in Sunday. They're all evaluated in the building on Monday. We get everything set and into place so that Tuesday, when the fair opens, everything is ready for the fair goers to come and see. And then I have some small, so the rabbit and cavy and poultry, some of the small animal shows. And showmanship contests, and then there's the horse show on Saturday. I don't think we mentioned
Yeah, we
that
didn't
yet,
mention
so
that.
that's great. We'll have horses there. They'll be there the whole day. So if folks want to come see, the horse ring arena can be a little hard to find, but it's when everyone parks on the infield, just kind of keep going.
Okay.
And we're out there. The big long red barn folks will see in the horse trailers, but and then we wrap up on the following Sunday with an exhibitor party. And then we will be headed right to State Fair on Tuesday to set up.
Yep.
So,
So no rest whatsoever.
no rest. No.
Do you have, because we've talked about the dog show, livestock, the auction, do you have a favorite part personally? Or do you just like taking it all in?
I think just interacting with the kids
Yeah.
is the biggest part. That
very
I mean,
rewarding.
it's rewarding
I'm
to
sure.
see these kids and how much they put into these animals and their projects.
It really is the highlight of the summer for most of the kids. So just seeing them really succeed and look forward and start planning for next year, taking what they've learned. So it is very rewarding.
Well, that does it for us. Thank you so much for being on the program, and good luck, because I know it's going to be stressful. So take it all in, enjoy it, and thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. There's always so much going on here on Frankly Speaking, jam-packed in, so that's why we wanted to get the guests in right from the top. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is Frankly Speaking. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio on Market Street. So that's back-to-back interviews yesterday and today about the Steuben County Fair. It's going to be a fun one, and I do really enjoy seeing how excited the kids are in the 4-H buildings, and just, you know, the pride that they have. There's something about that you can't fake. So I really appreciate our guests coming in this morning. Tomorrow we're going to be talking India Day, which is coming up on Saturday right here on Market Street in Corning, and then Thursday former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, and then on Friday Tommy James and the Shondells. If you have any questions for any of our guests, I know I didn't give you time to give us questions for our 4-H leaders, but you can always reach out there, and you can always reach out to me in general. And actually, before we go and catch up on breaks, I did receive a couple of really good, maybe thought-provoking, if you will, messages after the program yesterday. So I thought we would go to that. We'll start with that, and then we do have a couple of New York State issues. A couple things here about Trump actually ties in with what one of our viewers had to say. So this is the first one. Why does President Trump have to have such a vulgar mouth? He'd be so much better for the country if he set a good experience for our young people. Big mouths do not win elections. Let the Kennedys and the Democrats eat their own. We do not need that. I hope the Republicans can actually make America proud again. Now, there's always been, right, criticism of the former president's Twitter usage, now X, but now he's on Truth Social. If you can keep it all straight. Yes, very often, and that's one of the stories that if we have an opportunity to bring up later on, of him finally kind of taking off the gloves, if you will, against Mike Pence, which there's some people saying why. I mean, Mike Pence is, I think, getting, 2% of the vote. Why? But that was always a thing with Trump. I remember early on, people would say, why is he punching down? Why is he going after these certain people? There's something that mentally, I don't know, so that he does that. Because you say, why Pence? Pence isn't even on the radar right now. There was speculation he might not even make the debate. Ultimately, he did make the first debate, but originally, so I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure if that's what the viewer was referencing specifically, or if there was another point when Trump had a vulgar mouth, but an interesting point there, so I appreciate it, and that's what I love about this show. All sides, all issues, bring up your thoughts on it. Here's the next one. Is taxpayer money being used by the Democrats in all these failed attacks against President Trump? If so, shouldn't the Democrat Party need to return that money? Or are they free to spend unlimited amounts and use the FBI as their Gestapo on frivolous lawsuits and election interference against a leading candidate? I was thinking of if there was sources that needed to be paid back, resource. I'm sorry, it's a little small on my screen. I apologize, folks. I can read. I was thinking if there were these resources would need to be paid back, perhaps would be discouraging the behavior. I don't think it would discourage the behavior, because if there's one thing we do know, there never really seems to be an issue from Democrats in general about spending taxpayer money. So I don't think, again, they're never going to allow that to happen where they have to pay it back. So I don't think it is a detriment to them in any way. But yes, technically, I mean, taxpayers, yeah, they are paying for what's going on with these lawsuits. So interesting point. Thank you. Again, you can contact us. I do have to take another short break, but you can contact us with your thoughts either on those comments or about what we'll be getting to here in just a little bit. So please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thanks again to our guest, Jenny Michelle from 4-H. What an amazing organization. So if you are on the fence, like they said, it's a very small investment. I think you should join, or if you want to become a volunteer, start that process, because it sounds like they need a lot of volunteers. And let's face it, it's a very good program for young people at a time when we talk about some of the issues with young people, right? What a better way to get them involved in important things. Okay, let's talk about New York for a moment before we get into the national scene. We know that legalized marijuana has been disastrous, the rollout of it here in New York State. And now, as of yesterday, this coming up, let's see, there we go. New York cannabis dispensary openings have been halted by court order. The ruling sides with a group of service-disabled veterans, and that was one of the criticisms of the rollout. So the rollout was designed in a way to, I guess, reward someone that broke the law in the past, meaning if they had been charged with some type of marijuana drug-related offense, that they would be put at the front of the line. And really, I think it was the only ones that were allowed to even go for the licenses, or that would be ultimately approved for the licenses. So veterans group, disabled veterans, so this is completely unfair. Why are we not allowed to participate in this? What the state keeps telling us is going to be a cash cow. We have yet to see it because, again, the disastrous rollout. But so the ruling sided with the service disabled veterans. They filed a lawsuit last week arguing that a priority licensing program for entrepreneurs impacted by marijuana enforcement was unconstitutional. What a fancy way of putting that, but that it was unconstitutional. So no new weed shops will be able to open in New York after a judge blocked the cannabis regulators from moving forward with retail licensing on Monday. The order is the latest blow of many to New York's ambitious effort to ensure that people harmed by marijuana enforcement are able to reap the financial benefits of legalization. The court is blocking the state's cannabis regulatory agencies from issuing these new licenses. Just interesting. I don't really have an opinion on it. I do say good for the disabled veterans. I mean, that when we first heard about that they were being essentially blocked out because of this mechanism where you had to have been impacted by marijuana, it was wrong. It was wrong on face value. It's another prime example of Albany rushing to do something and not thinking it completely through, more to show that they are somehow woke or something like that, kind of the virtue signaling, if you will, instead of really focusing on and making the rollout effective. And that's why you had so many, and I know we've talked about a lot, but the illegal pot shops sprout up. That, again, and they'll continue. I mean, the black market's always going to be there when they've put so many rules and regulations and made it so difficult for these people to start legal dispensaries. So just wanted to highlight another example of the disaster of that rollout. Hey, speaking of disasters, did you see the New York Times did a little research on this, which I'm a little surprised by the New York Times lately. The New York Times recently, and this has since changed, of course, but recently criticized, if you will, President Biden for not acknowledging his 7th grandchild, which is not in place for how they normally behave at the New York Times. The New York Times more likely to bury stories that negatively affect the Democrat Party. But then before that, they did a couple little exposés on Governor Hochul that were pretty rough on her. thinking, what is going on? Now, they've done an expose, if you will, or a study about Governor Cuomo, and specifically his sister and her role behind the scenes. I'm going to talk about that when we come back, but I do have to take a break. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So we're talking about Governor Cuomo's, former Governor Cuomo's sister, and how she was involved behind the scenes to smear his accusers. And it's interesting, you think at a time, especially when the news kind of first broke, Me Too, really at almost its height. So to have his sister, Madeleine Cuomo, behind what was a orchestrated campaign to try to, if you will, destroy these women's lives and reputations. On Monday, the New York Times revealed that Cuomo's sister Madeleine was at the center of a campaign to shame his accusers. Miss Cuomo secretly communicated with members and leaders of a group called We Decide New York, an organization primarily made of women who defended Cuomo in 2021 when the accusations first surfaced. These women used aggressive tactics to target Cuomo's accusers, allegedly at Mr. Cuomo's behest, starting in the spring of 2021. So, again, We Decide New York member Anna Bavare tweeted to Charlotte Bennett, which Charlotte Bennett was one of Cuomo's former aides, saying, "Your life will be dissected like a frog in a high school science class. And you're the amphibian. The public, media, and the defense are the students. There's so much to learn about you. And if this goes to trial, we will know your every secret. I promise, darling." Darling. The New York Times received more than 4,000 text messages, emails, and voice memos between Miss Cuomo and leaders of We Decide New York, and confirmed that the post, among others, was directed by Miss Cuomo. Again, Madeleine Cuomo. We don't need to go into this. We already know it's disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo, but to have his sister being an attack dog, essentially, on people that accused him, trying to shame them, trying to destroy their lives, is despicable at a time when, Cuomo and others are trying to be champions in the Me Too movement. Miss Cuomo was reportedly adamant that her role be hidden, repeatedly asking her associates to delete messages. This is the Times. Again, the New York Times reporting on this. She also told the women to deny any affiliation with the Cuomo family when the Times reached out for an early report. And you think about the hero. Let me see my time. I'm good. The hero that Governor Cuomo was to the Times, to the left media during COVID at the very early days. He was a superstar, really like a Hollywood type figure, Hollywood superstar. They fawned over him. They loved everything he was doing. To see this crumble so quickly, that now the New York Times is actually doing an expose on his sister's involvement in trying to attack these women that accused him of misconduct. In a Monday statement, Ms. Cuomo defended her involvement with the group, saying she was, quote, protecting my family. So protecting my family by attempting to destroy the lives of women who came out and said that her brother was inappropriate. This is the people that the media hitched their wagon to. Well, we shouldn't be surprised because, of course, you have the nursing home tragedy decision by Cuomo, which was bad enough. But remember when he was getting special treatment for his family? When everybody else needed test kits and couldn't get them, his family was being escorted to doctors and getting front of the line treatment. So you see a history here about this entitlement. And she, in my opinion, believed that they were so entitled to be protected, to be him specifically let off the hook for these accusations, that she was willing to destroy innocent lives, try to destroy their reputation, because, quote, I was protecting my family. I acted on my own with the women of WDNY without his involvement in any way, meaning former Governor Cuomo. Hours after the Times report went live, the governor's sister said she only invoked her brother's name to the women so they felt their efforts were appreciated. Now, a former spokesman for Governor Cuomo, Rich Azzopardi, remember him? he reached out to the Times and said, quote, "The governor does not personally have, nor does he follow social media accounts, and he was not directly or indirectly involved in these online efforts. When he had something to say, he has not held back from doing so publicly." So interesting piece from the New York Times, something I thought you may not have heard, so I wanted to bring your way. But again, I don't think, knowing the history of the Cuomos, whether it's Andrew, whether it's Chris, we saw how Chris handles situations, hothead, I guess, and now their sister, Madeline. None of this really comes as a surprise. I would say the big surprise of this, to me, is that the New York Times actually reported on it and didn't just drop it. Because even though Cuomo's no longer useful to them as governor, he's still a Democrat. So a little surprising that the New York Times did that piece, and you can find it online. So we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you to everybody who's been reaching out throughout the program. We may get to those a little bit later on. So this has been a big point on this program. I've mentioned it numerous times, but kind of the aggression of China believing that they're the world's superpower, making more steps in that direction. So yesterday, Representative Ro Khanna from California was asked by Aaron Burnett from CNN's Out Front, I'll quote it exactly, "Does China see Biden as somehow easier to antagonize or not?" Khanna responded, "No." And without going into a typical political answer that goes very, very long, I will skip to the important part. She said, "So I don't doubt that China has become more aggressive, but I don't think this is a time to play partisan politics, regardless of if it were a Republican or a Democrat in the White House. The point should be, how do we ensure American superiority, and how do we de-escalate the risk?" So it's not Biden being softer. China's become more aggressive, but they don't see Biden as softer. Interesting how politics works sometimes. There's a piece, and this is just for mental fun, because this is never going to happen. But Daniel McCarthy has a piece at the New York Post. I can show it to you, but there's not much there for you to see. That he's saying that how Biden can spare America in 2024, and his thought is, you pardon former President Trump. Okay, again, just fun. I'd like to hear your opinion on this. You pardon former President Trump, and then because your party would essentially be so outraged and mad at you that you say, yep, oops, I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm going to move on and let younger people primary. That's the crux of his argument. Biden barely pulls ahead of Trump, and every week brings unwelcome reminders of the incumbent's age, said the Post. And it's quite a lengthy piece. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you kind of get the gist with what I just said. These prosecutions only help Trump in the primary. His rivals are forced either to side with Biden's Justice Department and Democrat prosecutors, or else to defend the man they want to beat. And that is a very good point. That's one of the reasons why I like this article so much, because we talked about in this program where it's amazing things that would normally destroy other politicians actually prove in most cases to be a benefit for the former president. Biden's a record setter in unpopularity, with the lowest approval ratings at this point in his term of any president in the last 40 years. Only you got to go back to Jimmy Carter to see worse. So he says he's already a weak president, and then he's going to become a lame duck if he wins. And if Democrats think they would win political advantage by turning the GOP, and let me slow this down because I thought this was a really good part of the piece, and this is why I just highlighted a few things. And if Democrats think they would win political advantage by turning the GOP into a revenge for Trump party, perhaps with Trump himself as an imprisoned martyr, they should consider which cause would inspire more devotion, that of a winner, too decrepit to lead, or that of a populist hero, whose persecution mirrors the way his followers feel about their own fate in a Democrat-run America. Isn't that interesting? And I go back to this quote that I think I've quoted almost every day now. But our guest on Thursday's program, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky, said, there's a lot of people that don't like Trump, but really dislike the deep state. and will vote against the deep state every time. And that's that same kind of argument. What will, and in this case, looking at it from both parties, what will build up your party as a Democrat? Will it be putting Joe in there, Joe Biden, as we see things getting worse, or you're making a political martyr out of Trump? How is that going to help your party grow? Biden has the power to avert this. All it will cost is his shot at a miserable second term. If Biden pardons Trump, the Republican contest will have to be fought on different, better terms, not whether or not the charges against Trump are valid. And that's a very good point. That's the main argument right now, right? That's the main topic, and don't think it won't be during the Republican debate coming up. Trump might still win such a contest. Politically embarrassing though it would be to accept a pardon for Biden. That's good. Yeah, imagine that, the optics on that. I mean, Trump would hate it, but you got to take the pardon, right? But the battle will be conducted like a traditional primary, not a referendum on the Democrats' desire to, quote, lock him up. Yeah, and then it'll be a more traditional primary, not on essentially one topic. Biden's own party would revile the president for granting a pardon, but he could do them an equal favor and say, okay, I accept your outrage, and in good grace, I'm opting not to seek a renomination next year. The Democrats, too, would then have a more competitive primary, with the likelihood of younger leadership getting its turn, like Gavin Newsom, who we know is hoping for some scenario to play out where he can still step in and run. Or he could bow out with a grand gesture, one offensive to the fanatics in his party, yet actually healthy for the party and for the other party too. He would make history, but to do it, he has to be selfless and bold. Consider it, Mr. President. All you have to lose are the burdens better borne by a younger leader. So that's Daniel McCarthy. He's the editor of Modern Age, a conservative review. I know I probably shouldn't start a segment by saying I don't think something's going to happen, but I thought there was a few things in that piece that were kind of intriguing in a way, because it does seem like every time they go after Trump with a different indictment, it does build him up. So if Biden were to say your pardon, think of the optics, how bad that would be for Trump. But of course, it would mean his party turning on him, so he would not be able to run for re-election. Just something kind of fun to think about, something a little bit different. And I'd love to hear your take on it before we go to break, or you can contact me at any time, but I want to put my contact info up before we go to any break. So feel free to text or call, email. As I mentioned, on tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking about India Day here in Corning. That's on Saturday, right here in Centerway on Market Street. And then on Thursday, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. And then on Friday, Tommy James. And we're already booked up for next week, too. As we're really growing here. And I think just doing a great job with getting amazing guests. So thank you to everybody. Like our guests this morning, Jenny and Michelle from 4-H at Cornell Cooperative Extension. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that everybody can go out next week to the Steuben County Fair, as I mentioned, and Joe and I will talk about on Thursday, but I'm going to be at the Republican booth on Friday from 2 to 4. That's next Friday, okay? So the Steuben County Fair is next week. So if you are going to the fair, I hope that you can stop by maybe Friday 2 to 4 and say hi. I'm getting tongue twisted this morning. Say hi, and we can have a fun chatting. All right, let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Thank you so much for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I mentioned earlier in response to a viewer's comment about Trump and the language that he uses sometimes, he's in the full attack mode on former Vice President Mike Pence. Right now, Pence did reach the donor threshold, to appear on the first debate. Fox News is hosting the debate, which will be held August 23rd, coming right up, August 23rd in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Pence becomes the 8th Republican presidential candidate to announce they've passed that threshold to qualify for the debate. The other, of course, former President Trump, DeSantis, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Doug Burgum, and Vivek Ramaswamy, which, by the way, Vivek Ramaswamy is doing better in the polls, and he's making some headway. And what's interesting about it is that, as is the case in politics, the attacks are happening on him now. We'll maybe talk about that in just a second. But Trump called Mike Pence delusional. But you know what's interesting? Pence has not given an answer one way or the other of whether he would pardon Trump if he won. So anyway, on Truth Social, so I just mentioned, again, going back to the theory, I don't understand the punching down idea, but if history has shown us anything, the former president is fine with that, and it's been successful for him. Adam Kissinger, former representative, now, as is the case if you're a Republican, even if it's only in theory, and you want a job at CNN, just badmouth Republicans. Keep it going, and you'll have a job for life. That's exactly what we have here. He was on Anderson Cooper 360 saying that, where is the exact term, that he is actually going insane. You see a man that is literally, and this is in reference to Trump, you see a man that is literally, I think, literally losing his mind. I don't even mean that metaphorically. I think he's actually going insane. That will get you a job all day long at CNN. Now, Democrat Representative Judy Chu from California says that unlike Trump, Hunter Biden, because there's, people are kind of making the comparison, of how Trump's been thrown everything at him, but that Hunter got that sweetheart plea deal that obviously was not allowed. But so she says that unlike Trump, Hunter interacted with the law. Hunter got a, quote, fair deal, even with that blanket immunity. It's amazing, the defense. I think that Hunter Biden is a sideshow for the Republicans, and that they haven't even dealt with the allegations fairly. I also think that the American people don't really care about Hunter Biden. They do care about larger issues like where their next dollar is coming from. I do believe they are worried about money because of Bidenomics. I do believe that, but it doesn't mean that they don't want it. And why does Representative Chu get to decide what the American people care about and not? Isn't that they didn't trust the American people to do the research themselves, so they had to have the laptop stories censored on social media, even though that was obviously proven true. They didn't think you could be trusted with that information, or that they had to protect the Bidens in some way, so it was censored. So isn't that the same mindset? American people don't even care about it, according to Representative Chu. I don't know. I think there was a lot of people that maybe didn't even follow the story or had no opportunity to follow the story because of the media outlets that they go to, because there was so little coverage, that I think once they heard about the blanket immunity and just how much of a sweetheart plea deal that was, I think there was some outrage from maybe circles that had not cared before. So it's interesting to see the twisting and turning. Vivek Ramaswamy, as I mentioned, he is rising in the 2024 field. Now, of course, here comes scrutiny. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. Got to take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Acom. So Vivek Ramaswamy is rising in the polls. There's been some new interest in his campaign, and he has said some pretty good things in the past that we've mentioned on this program. He has moved into third or fourth place in some states and national polls, and he says his opponents are starting to take notice. He said the opposition research machines are churning, and what they're finding is he at one time, maybe it was playful, but at one time he did praise billionaire Democrat mega donor George Soros, criticized Trump for not conceding the 2020 election, and had his name on a joint letter calling for greater diversity and inclusion efforts in business. He also at one point called himself an animal rights activist. And this is from Wall Street Journal. They really go through and pick apart past quotes that they could find. I'm not saying this in any bias for or against Ramaswamy. I think he's been very interesting so far, and I think he's refreshing in the race. But they're making sure to point out what some may deem negative about his past. Ramaswamy, who has proposed increasing the standard voting age to 25, interesting, has little voting history of his own. election records in Ohio's Franklin County, where he lives, show he registered to vote there in November of 2021 as unaffiliated, not Republican. So just little things like that. But he has been very outspoken against what maybe you could call that woke culture. And now they're finding some things in the past where maybe that's not the case. I do know yesterday, and I'm sure the media will have a field day with this if he's even on the radar, but he proposed canceling Juneteenth, the national holiday of Juneteenth, saying cancel Juneteenth or one of the other useless ones we made up, Ramaswamy said. You can't have everything be a holiday, but we'll cancel one of the other ones and make Election Day a holiday. So what he's saying is get rid of one of the holidays and make Election Day a federal holiday so people can have off. So when asked to clarify, hey, do you really believe there should be no Juneteenth? He said, yeah, I do. I basically do. I think that if we made a national commemorative holiday for everything that's happened in our history, we'd have no working days left. But I think the spirit of Juneteenth was already channeled into other holidays, like Martin Luther King Day, like President's Day. I think we can commemorate the spirit of that holiday separately. All right, we've got to take our last break. Stay with us. We'll be right back and wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Man, it goes fast here on Frankly Speaking, doesn't it? Welcome back. We're wrapping things up here. A couple of quick things. Housekeeping. First of all, let me put up my contact information because, as I said, tomorrow we'll be talking about representatives from India Day. We'll be talking about India Day coming up on Marcus Street in Centerway this Saturday. On Thursday, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky. He is also the Steuben County Republican chairman. So if you have any questions about perhaps running for office, how you can get involved with the upcoming elections, please reach out to me. And then Friday, Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells. So we have an eclectic and fun list of interviews coming up. I also want to thank Jenny and Michelle for being on the program this morning. They're the 4-H leaders from Cornell Cooperative Extension. Make sure to stop by at the Steuben County Fair and say hi to them. Tell them what a great job they did right off the jump this morning, going right on as soon as we went on the air. So I appreciate them being on the program. But as I said, you can always contact me with any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms. We do not have time to get to these pieces, but I would recommend it if you have a moment later on. There's an interesting piece by Victor Davis Hanson, and it's the 10 ways American culture and way of life is under assault. And we don't even have time to go through each one, but free expression, the weaponization of justice, the attack on the Supreme Court. It's about 9-10 pages, but it's a very very good, interesting piece, again by Victor Davis Hanson. And there's also another one that these are both at the New York Post. Out of touch progressives are driving non-white voters out of the Democrat Party, and and they're basing this on New York Times Siena College polls, and there's really some fascinating numbers there, because the crux of this piece is that, it's this overly progressive, this kind of woke mindset is scaring more moderate to conservative people out of the Democrat Party. The idea, and we've said it a million times in the past, but the Democrat Party of today is not the Democrat Party of your parents or your grandparents. But we are out of time. Thank you to everybody who joined us. As always, I really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early.